Next on the DragonShip, we're going to be talking about...
You know when you go on that first date and you try to make a move and then she does this?
Mom, I'm not that kind of girl.
Then you catch her doing this with the hot guy?
Oh my God!
And you're left wondering why girls don't do that with you? Well, we're going to be talking about that on the next episode of the DragonShip.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the DragonShip. My name is Phil Foster. You can find me over at philfosterfitness.com. Today, we're going to be talking about alpha fucks, beta bucks, Chad's lay, and Brad's pay. I'd like to bring up our man, the myth, the legend, Thor Markinson.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mark Daniels.
What's up, fellas?
And Raith Deantior. I'm going to do the monologue a little bit different today since it's just the four of us right now. You know, I wanted to go ahead and have all four of us on the screen. It says the DragonShip with RP Thor, Chad's lay, and Brad's pay. Today, women make the rules for beta males and break rules for alpha males. We've always known that one, though, if you're in the red pill space. Hence the old age saying alpha fucks and beta bucks. This has been the duality at the core of human-female mating strategy. So arm yourself with the experience of these successful men, Thor, Mark Daniels, and Raith Deantior, with the real-world impact and willing to put themselves out there for your benefit. Climb aboard for a timely discussion on the DragonShip. Vikings res the shield wall. Welcome everybody in, and looks like we got some viewers in here. And so, how's everybody doing today, Thor?
Fantastic. This is one of those perennial red pill manosphere type of topics that I always love. I mean, it's alpha seed and beta need. Why is it that why is it that human female women have such a dualistic nature in mate selection? And it changes throughout the course of their lifetime. And there is a lot of at least corollary evidence that it also changes during a woman's menstrual cycle. At least corollary evidence that strongly points in that direction. So this should be a really fun one because I can imagine in my own life watching, you know, the guys pine for a certain gal, and you know, early on in her life, she ends up going for, you know, the athletes, the musicians, all of that sort of stuff. And then, you know, he is that guy like Ross on Friends that says, if we're not married by 30, let's get together. And here we comes 30, you know, and she looks over at him and says, you know what, time to settle down. You know, I'm not finding myself anymore. Let's settle down. So this should be a fun one to talk about, Phil. Thanks for leading us in today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Thor. And so basically, you know, as we were talking, you know, earlier this week, and then to get ready for the show, you wanted to speak on ovulatory shift and the hypothesis behind that. Mark, how you doing today?
Doing great. Looking forward to this interesting discussion.
Excellent, man. This is going to be a good one.
I think it's a sign of the times, the materialistic society we live in today.
100%. Raith, what about you?
I'm doing good, man. And like I said, I think it's going to be interesting. We don't all share the same point of views, but I mean, we'll get through it.
Oh, that'll be fun. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. So basically, you know, discussing of ovulatory shift and, you know, the premise behind a lot of the reasons why women behave the way they do throughout their life, you know, and so, you know, the alpha, you know, the alpha fucks, beta bucks side of things, obviously they go through that transitional phase in their life. If I do seem a little bit blurry, guys, it's my apologies. I'm having some sort of internet issue on and off for the last couple of days, so my apologies to you on that. You know, basically, ovulatory shift it's an interesting topic. You know, I want to credit Wiki because I did a little bit of research on there, and Thor's also got some graphics that we're going to put up here as well. The estrus evolved to facilitate reproduction and maximize reproductive success, or the success of passing one's genes by producing offspring that are most likely to survive and reproduce themselves. The ovulatory shift hypothesis proposes that motivation and desire to mate should increase during the fertility window. So believe it or not, a lot of these girls, they go through these cycles in their hormonal month to month thing where it's, you know, hey, they're in ovulation, you know, estrus and all those good things. And so, yes, Thor?
Would you like to see the graph while you're presenting?
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. Let's
All
start.
right, let's do it. This is a good one, by the way. This one kind of shows the different type of hormones throughout a menstrual cycle and why this is so influential on female choices in men. And Phil's going to give us a good indication of why that might be.
Yeah, it's an interesting graphic because when you really start to listen to some of these things that they've put out here, on this, there's actually scientific information about this. They've actually broken it down. The ovulatory shift hypothesis proposes the motivation and desire to mate should increase during that fertility window. And you can see that right there on the graphic. An ideal mate could have many qualities, resources to care for offspring, the physical ability and social status to protect a mate and offspring, and compatible personality for long-term pair bonding. It's interesting when in our space, in the men's space, especially the red pill community, it's the younger girls are it's party time, and it's I'm out here and I'm looking for that alpha itch to get scratched, and as they hit that epiphany phase in their life, and that biological clock starts to tick down, and they're ready to settle down and start having a family. So I don't know so much about that pair bonding on the end of that. Thor, what are your thoughts on that?
Hormones definitely play a role, in particularly oxytocin after actual sex and orgasm. So I think there's a stronger role to play in that and the emotional bonding that occurs rather than this chart right here. I think this just sets up sets the ball on the tee ready to be driven downrange, shall we say.
100%. Evolutionary theory and sexual selection theory suggest that an organism's top priority should be to maximize survival and reproductive success. Thus, the ovulatory shift hypothesis proposes that women possess a dual sexuality, where during the fertility window, a woman should prioritize attracting and choosing a mate with the best genetic quality or good genes, since this is the only time she can become pregnant and pass on her heritable genetic qualities to her offspring. And so that kind of lays into what we talk about in this red pill space, or in men's self-help, or whatever, the men's communities, or we'll just coin MLD's phrase, right? It's money, muscles, and game. You got that status, you got the physicality that's going to definitely attract women, and so
right.
that is a definite thing right there.
See, birth control, doesn't birth control throw a stick in the spokes of the wheel in this whole deal?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to touch on that. It does, definitely. And we're going to touch on that here in a little bit, Mark. I will definitely hit that. Okay. Definitely. So understanding that, you're up against a hormonal wall, guys, when it comes to women, and understanding how they operate. It's important. So some research has suggested that over the evolutionary time, women may have maximized their reproductive success by seeking good genes from extra pair copulation. Do you guys know what that means? You guys ever heard that, Raith?
I don't understand that.
So an extra pair copulation would be what, Thor?
It would be outside of the normal mating pair, like
cheating.
Yeah.
How about cuckolding?
Chad? Is Chad outside the normal mating? Chad's outside that?
Certainly it can be, and that's a big part of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, Chad and Tyrone are definitely outside they fall into that category. It says cheating on their partner at high fertility, while also maintaining long-term pair bonding with their partner who provides parenting resources for the offspring, sometimes called the dual strategy hypothesis. And once again, you can find this on Wiki, but it's important to understand that a lot of the things that we read about in this side of the internet, or listen to on podcasts or live streams, are definitely 100% verifiable and backed up by science. And so
the sexy sons hypothesis here.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is it's verifiably backed up, and that's the important thing. So it says, of course, an optimal partner is one with both sexy cad and good dad traits, but such a man is statistically unlikely to be common. I couldn't find the statistic on that. I don't know, Mark, Raith, Thor, do you have any idea on what the statistics of that would be? Would that be the top 5%?
Well, you kind of have to get back into the evolutionary psychology, such as the work that Dr. David Buss did with the evolution of desire. He kind of leans towards this, at least in the part where he's worked with Dr. Marty Hazelton on this ovulatory shift. Now, I think they may have taken this information, it's corollary evidence, and they may have shifted away from it. But at the time they looked at this, a woman that's ovulating has a mate preference that is different than when she is not. And they did a lot of questions and answers towards this. And this seems to be backed up over time by the advent of parental testing in DNA. The numbers on that are quite startling. And so I guess what I'm saying here is when a woman enters into that ovulatory phase, her desire for good, solid genes that are attractive to her, where she has desire, even sexual desire, is stronger, at least instinctual, down at that mammalian brain level or even below. It's get a mate. But you know what? She also has kind of an emotional need for security and provisioning, and that it may not be exactly the same in the exact same man. And there's evolutionary reasons for this. And it's to perpetuate the species and provide good genetics that survive beyond just her. So, realizing this, when it gets back to parental testing today, anytime you can look this up. I don't want to put the sticks up. We're just doing tongue-in-cheek discussion right here. But when there is a question of parentage for children, where this comes into play, 33% are not the father is not the father. 33% when in question. And when it's not in question, it's much lower than that, but it's still there. It's just under 20%. And they've done hundreds of thousands of parental DNA tests. And there's even a warning, and we've done it on this show before on 23andMe and Ancestry, where it says you may not want to find out, because they actually have counseling services, because what you might have thought as a blood relative, there is a possibility it may not be the case. And it may be slightly more common than you think. And this points us right back in this direction, Phil, where we have this ovulatory shift that naturally occurs. I mean, mating for a woman can be a high risk thing. The consequence is 9 months or even longer, basically 2 years. It's 9 months of kind of reduced functionality, extra food and provisions and security is needed. And then there is the extra care that she could be using to survive in order to keep the children alive, to get to the point of weaning before this comes back. And nature has created these hormones and these bonding hormones after sex to actually drive it. I mean, if you think about that kind of risk, you almost have to think, good God, can you imagine living in the Stone Age, Phil, and you're a woman? You may not want kids. Mating has to be the last thing on your mind. This is serious business.
It's dangerous. Dangerous business.
So nature has given certain rewards and incentives that drive this. That's almost beyond reason, logical thought, in order to ensure this happens in us. And we're very unique because we're the only mammal that conceals this ovulatory period, or what did I call it earlier? It's their estrus. We conceal estrus. Human female women do go into heat, but it is concealed, and it may not even be conscious to the woman herself. However, I have met women that are very, let's say, have high sexual energy. They are very aware of when that time comes, and they've even described it as such, as being in heat, much like certain other mammals. So what do you say to all of that?
I just wanted to back it up right here with the science. It says, thus natural selection may have designed ancestral, the Stone Age, like you were speaking on, to be opportunistic. If successful, this is the magical part of this whole thing. Before we get to that graphic, if successful, a woman could gain the benefits of both high quality genetics and high quality parenting to give her offspring the best chance for survival. However, natural selection would have favored men who desire to provide for offspring that do not share their genes. So this would have been a risky strategy, like you were just talking about. So looking at that graphic there, I mean, if you could blow that up a little bit, you'd be a hero for me, because I don't have really good eyes. The follicular phase, you can see right there, she's kind of relaxed and flat. And then in ovulation, the luteinizing hormone starts to spike. And boom, she's ready to breed at that moment in time. You see that little window right there. What's that, about a week? And then
she's ready to become pregnant for sure.
yeah, she's
it can
ready to
breed at any
breathe.
time. It's just
Yeah, like around week 2 of her ovulation cycle, it starts to rise, and then it really peaks out there. And you see that progesterone comes up there towards the end after that in the luteal phase, and it's amazing because the progesterone falls into place for one specific reason only, because the need has been met, I would say. Would you agree to that?
I would. And there's one thing that's missing here that we're going to put together at another episode that I think is impacting women today far more than anybody realizes. If you notice here, we're showing estradiol, which is, that's a combination of all 3 estrogen types in the woman. We're showing progesterone, critical. There's 2 things we're not seeing. We're not seeing that prolactin, and we are not seeing testosterone.
Yeah.
In this graph, which is interesting because it does increase along with that estradiol during this time. And that's an interesting thing because, if a woman is suppressed in that area, things change. And the use of birth control disrupts this process because they're all progesterone based. If you look at the luteal phase, that is what's also been called the nesting phase. Very high, runs very high, that in prolactin in pregnant women. So essentially the use of progestins, it's not the estrogens per se that is the large component in birth control pills, but progestins is what does this. And it's a big part that's in birth control that actually passes through our current water treatment system as it ends up in all of our drinking water, which has some kind of effect because progesterone can be passed through the gut and absorbed in the body.
Yeah, that's incredible. Mark, you have anything you want to?
Mark wanted to talk about the birth control issue. You
want me to swing down to that? We can do that, definitely. Go ahead, Mark, bring it up.
I just think it's like everything else. Any kind of, like your SSRIs, is that what you're calling? Any kind of drug you take affects the way people feel and the way they react. So you're messing with the hormonal system here with a woman. And I was thinking also, as you guys were talking about the selection process, men have they have selection process also, but it's not as easy for them to, how do I say, to do it, for lack of a better way. As a woman, she can go out and find somebody pretty well anytime she wants to, but a man actually has to, it's just, a woman says yes, and a man has to actually go out and put some effort out. So I don't know whether a lot of that is so relevant today because, you talked about the 2-year window for a woman when she gets pregnant. Is that as much of a consideration for women today or as it would have been back in the Stone Age because they have so much support and help? A lot of women go and have a baby and they go to work, within the first month after they have it to go back to work, some of them do?
Oh, I'm certain it's a factor. We're very oversimplifying here for the purpose of the discussion.
Yeah, I understand. I was just thinking, I wondered how much of a consideration it is for women nowadays because they can work up until what time? 9 months pregnant or until they have a baby?
Yeah, up to conception, I would imagine.
I don't think it's.
My question is, do they want to?
Well, I don't think it's wise, and also if the baby's not bonding with the mother and the baby's in daycare within a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, what effect does that have on the child down the road? So that's something to think about too. I believe we've really kind of gotten away from a lot of the things we need to stay with as far as raising children. But I've been called a misogynist and I got traditional ideas, so that's just my point of view.
You've got the tough breaks, Mark. It's okay, man.
I get attacked for my traditional views there.
No, I think the birth control thing is a valid
oh yeah,
issue,
definitely,
for sure. And it's like what Pitney just said. Are women losing attraction to partners they selected while on birth control? There's corollary evidence that points in that direction. I can't say that it is firm science yet because it correlates a cause and effect. And there, like Mark said, there could be other factors that play into that as well. But at its base level, we're talking generally, we can generally accept that there is a corollary connection between on birth control attraction and off. And this has been admitted to by very, very many women. And that's the evidence that we have.
Absolutely.
Smells are different. Feelings are different, emotions run differently, and so I think that's super valid. Actually,
let me throw one out there for you guys. Now, me as a male, of course, I got a lot of kids. I don't enjoy being with a woman that can't get pregnant as much as I do a woman who can get pregnant. I don't know if any of you guys ever feel that way, or does it matter to you? It's always mattered to me. If a woman can get pregnant, to me, it's not that I'm trying to get her pregnant, but I enjoy the sex more. I enjoy being with a woman more because there's nothing in between. Maybe it's a natural thing. I'm not sure. I don't know if any of you guys ever thought about that, or it doesn't matter to you.
I try every single time. There is no. Let me do my Yoda voice. There is no try, only do. Only do.
I think there's like a hint of Asian in there. It's an Asian Yoda.
Oh, okay.
No, I want to read this. I want to read this.
Let me get back. Yeah, let's get back to the synopsis. So we can get into the right now, guys, just so that I catch everybody up that's on the stream. And thank you. There's 26 of you right now. I really appreciate that. Guys, we're going to reward the super chats with the war horns today. And I just want to stop everybody. If you go over to YouTube or to my YouTube channel at RP Thor, you can join for $4.95 a month, where you will get exclusive private videos from me and other things like that. If you are a member, I see it on screen. You can get your questions answered. You go to the top of the line, just like the super chat. So please do that. Take a look at that. Everything that goes on from that channel supports the DragonShip and every member here. So let's get back into this. What we're trying to do is put this synopsis out so that you have a basic understanding of why we might have the tongue-in-cheek dual sexual nature of women that we call, Chad's lay and the Brad's pay. So here we go.
It's the duplicity. And so to answer Mark, the effects of hormonal contraception, this is important to hear. Since it has been proposed that changes in hormone levels across the ovulatory cycle are the primary mechanisms that cause cycle shifts, some studies have explored the effects of hormonal contraception, like the pill, on both women's cycle shifts and other people's ability to detect this cycle. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Studies have reported that hormonal contraceptives weaken or eliminate cycle shifts entirely. It has also been, proposed that synthetic hormones present in hormonal contraception that suppress ovulation also suppress the subsequent cognitive and behavioral changes found in natural cycling women. And other studies have stated that changes in synthetic hormones produce cycle shifts similar to effects produced by the real hormone changes in naturally cycling women. So it can go both ways, is what they're saying. Some girls that may not naturally cycle when they get on the pill will, and some girls that are on the pill, won't. So to answer your question, Mark, 100% it does mess with them.
It's like all drugs, it affects everybody differently.
Yeah, and hormones are really interesting. Hormones are communication. Imagine them as communication packets that are full of instructions, and they're different throughout the body where those receptors are, and they travel at the speed of blood, and they're intended to act at the most primal level. And guess what? Your nerves and your brains actually have receptors for these hormones, so it is causing nerves and the nerve cells to emit these neurotransmitters beyond your will, essentially, when these things happen.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is hormones are 100%. They are the control. They control everything in your body. Absolutely. And I wanted to just put a quick point out there. What you said, it's in our water supply because they're actually taking the pills and then urinating, and obviously they can't get that out. So believe it or not, everybody, even men that are drinking tap water and things like that, that's unfiltered, you're actually catching a little bit of those products as well. It's interesting. Raith, do you have any comment on this at all? As far as
can I stop right there? Stop the show before we get to Raith.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I need to chat.
You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit.
Guys, I got 10 likes. There's 31 in here. It doesn't cost a thing. Help us out. We're trying to provide some real fun stuff for you guys here.
Yeah.
So
we're giving you some science today. It's a science day. We're going to science class. Day.
Come and like us, please. I really appreciate that. And I'm not going to apologize for that because that's funny as fuck. So let's get back to Raith.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So I just want to hop in over onto sexual desire before. Raith, did you have a comment on that at all? We haven't really heard from you on this.
I agree with all this, but I think there's some underlying things that we don't really take into account social constructs that current social constructs have an effect on it, and current attraction standards, they also have an effect on it, and current materialistic standards have an effect on it. Okay, let's take body fat percentage probably 40 years ago. Okay, body fat percentage was roughly for women probably in the 15 to 24 to 25 range. All right. And as we become less active, all right, the body fat percentages aren't changed. And that's the genetic marker about body fat. You're born with so many cells, and so women get heavier, and men do too. I'm just using women as an example. Men get heavier, the traction changes because availability changes. All right. So selection becomes what your next indicator of health is going to be. So that's social engineering driven into that. Like right now, we want everybody to have less than 30% body fat. Well, 100 years ago, 26 to 27% body fat was maybe desired because of a lack of food or an opportunity for lack of food. So all those things go into it. And what do those things do? They also help. They also control some of your hormone functions, because they're key indicators of health. So there's a lot that goes into it. And to simplify it and say it's only this, yeah, it can be only that if everything is perfect. But, look at the outside influences that have an effect on it too.
100%. 100%.
That's interesting. I think we're going to take a look at that. What you're saying is that over time, the social contracts have an effect over the selection process.
Right, they do.
Yeah, I got a pretty good chart from the Rational Male. I think that describes it very well. We get into that. We get into that part. What do you say, Phil?
That sounds solid. We can do that. Definitely. Definitely.
Right.
So, so you want to deviate it. That's fine. So
no, we don't have to. I mean, we could keep going on, and then, or we could. You want to look at that time shift right now? I can bring that up.
Yeah. Let's whip that up. Let's do that.
Okay, let me remove this.
So how do we correlate this to Brad pays and Chad lays?
Well, I think let's get through this portion, and then we'll get
All
to we'll get to the timeline, because we do want to talk about basically.
Well, but also social constructs change the perception of what a Chad is and what.
Yeah, that's true.
100%.
I think there's a fundamental part of that adds to it, but I think the fundamental baseline, I'm going to push back, is something that is universal. I can go back to some of the works that Dr. David Buss did, and what they found as far as attraction, and we would define it as masculine behavior in men as they grow and establish status in whatever society that they have, is pretty universal across the entire planet. So it must be something that's much more fundamental when it comes to that. So, and it seems as though as we move forward and add all these constructs on, it's an additive or a subtractive process to that base level, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
I agree, but I also want to say this, okay? If you go back to prehistoric times, survival was the social construct. All right? That was everything that we did to survive.
Yeah, being herd animals, absolutely.
Okay. As we industrialize, all right, the social understanding of social positioning for males and females has changed. Not to say that I agree with it, but it's changing. Okay, because the narrative is pushed that we're not just surviving anymore. When you get past the survival side of it and you start trying to develop social acuity beyond that, it becomes, the top 15 to 20% drive what masculinity was. That's not the case anymore. I mean, the common theme right now is masculinity is what you want it to be. And that's been pretty relevant, pretty relevant since, maybe the late 60s, early 70s. We've been moving towards that. So now, if you identify as a male and you're a male, and
there will be consequences that we're already seeing it.
Right. And that's all I'm saying. You've got to watch the social constructs and see what effect the social constructs and have on attraction and on understanding and belief systems and on how we perceive ourselves as individuals, okay, based on those social constructs.
Yeah.
So why are 80% of men aren't getting laid right now? Because they're not acting, and it's not as simple as saying they're not acting the way a man should act. There's other things that are going into that.
Yeah.
All right. And one of the things is unfettered unilateral attraction across the spectrum of human. So, and that's talking about bisexuality and all that stuff. So all those norms that we used to have, okay, that were, if you're this, you're not this. Those are going away, and you get to, if you believe what Gillette says, you get to define what is masculine is. And most men are looking to women to define that because of the thirst. You define that for me so I can get lucky. And they're not getting lucky. That's the problem. All right. And it drives a bigger wedge in what the differential of attraction is from an instinctual standpoint to what the social construct is.
Well,
so what are you getting at as far as this ovulatory shift? Are you saying it's less important or it's more important than the social contract?
I think if you want to be successful at reproducing, is probably more important. But if you want to be accepted in society, it's probably less important.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good
social
point.
construct.
That's a good point, because I will make the argument that the social contracts are actually based in Malthusian theory, and actually we are entering a potential demographic catastrophe because of the last 60 years of this. But that's another show.
Yeah, and you see that why? Because we look at the population rate in this country dropping.
That is a very horrifying, guys. That is just to sidetrack for a minute, Phil. We're going to get back to the present.
Oh, this is good. We're good, bro. This is good. This is good. I like them talking.
This one is a very serious disaster that almost everybody is looking the other way on. Like him, love him, or hate him, Elon Musk is a thinker, and he thinks in such a way that it's easy to see, and anybody that looks can see. It goes against all political viewpoints right now, and that's the coming demographic catastrophe. And this will be a catastrophe that will rival even natural catastrophes, the asteroid, earthquakes. And the reason for that is when we have 7 to 8 billion people, we have specialized with information, with technology, with our social constructs in such a way that if we miss even 10 to 20% of any sector, we don't have the ability to continue forward with that sector, be it technology, production, energy, or even, making babies. And that starts a cascade event. Imagine anybody here, could you just go and build a toaster oven? Any man here?
No. I'm just going to be honest. No,
you cannot get the knowledge. You could buy one, but can you put it together? Can you get the coils right? Can you make the actual coils with the right resistance so it works with the correct frequency and amplitude of current that comes into it? Could you do all those things? Could you make the connectors? This is an amazing task, but it's so easy because how we've constructed our society and how we've integrated all these things. That's just an example. Once the population gets to a certain point, we're going to be a lot of old people. We're going to have we're going to have some young people that don't have babies to replace and teach these skills. I mean, look at this phone right here. The technology here is dependent 100% on us having at least a stable population in the billions. And without that, welcome back to barely even, the 18th century, if not before. Who has the skills right now to put together a wooden sailing ship? Because if we lose this skill set, it's only going to take about 20 or 30% of the population. You're going to wait for planes for days or weeks because there's only a few operating and it takes so long to get the parts constructed.
We have a shortage on skilled labor now here in the West.
And it could get even so bad that you might take a ship. And now that flight that took you 7 hours across the pond is going to take you 2 months.
It's taking it. Take a ship. Drop the oars. Let's go.
Laugh as you will, but population collapse is a really serious thing, and it's not looked at. There are actually countries that encourage populations to immigrate as to maintain their status of living because of the social contracts that they have put on their citizens. They're not making enough babies. You can look
at my part.
Anyway.
Well, and I mean, if you look at it right now, look at this country.
Yeah.
We're sitting there and we're screaming about people coming across the border. All right. And I totally believe in people being able to come into the country and, find and develop. Okay. We're screaming about them coming across the border, but if you take all the vacant jobs or job vacancies that we have and you put everyone to work that could work, we're still 3 million people short of being able to have every job filled.
Supply and demand. That's why they're coming. There's a demand.
Right. Yeah.
That's
and we as a nation have done that to ourselves. All right. And if you go look at, and I'm not talking about critical race theory, but if you just go look at critical theory that comes out of what Thor's talking about, all right, there's critical theory on economics, there's critical theory on social structure, there's critical theory on just about everything. And the think tanks that were developing this come up with all these critical theories on how we maintain a population. Okay, but the flaw in it is that they have a tendency to think there's only limited resources for so many people, and there's not. That's not true.
No, that's part of Malthusian theory, right? Is that there's limited resources, but they never take into account the actual resource because they can't measure it, and the fact that humans have a productivity a curve that is a logarithmic. And right. So every prediction that's been based on that limitation has failed for nearly 300 years.
Right. And I agree. And like I said, but that's where you're looking at right now is, we went all through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s for zero growth, zero population growth. And you're feeling the effects of it now.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there telling young women in the 70s and 80s that they shouldn't have kids because it's going to destroy the world.
Oh, we're going to do a whole show on that.
Right. What's the result you have right now is what we have a population that's decreasing. We have unfettered behaviors. And I mean, these are the social constructs that have been put into place that are causing the issues. Now, if you go back to what the question you asked me, is it important? Is this ovulatory shift important? I think if we are trying to have kids, yes. But that's not our current social requirement.
Correct. I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. And that actually points to a much larger issue. What we got back towards this ovulatory shift is it creates behaviors, or at least sets up the behaviors to be made. And we're trying to explain why the Chads get laid and why the Brads end up paying. And you did mention earlier that 30% of the young men are rather sexist right now. That has a lot to do with social constructionism and the fact that the global sexual marketplace is open. And there is the delusion that the top 10, 20% are immediately available to every single woman on the planet that looks for that, which is absolutely not true. And so it really creates a quicksand for them as far as their mating opportunities, and makes them want to shut down perfectly good mates that would actually give them a fulfilled life, in the hopes and the dreams that her little princess Ariel dream would come true, right? And that's unfortunate because that's where demographic collapse is going to be a big deal. However, for those Chads out there, your opportunities are incredible. I just was looking at some of the research for this, and in that top 20%, the sexual encounters has gone from like an average over the course of sexually active in those men from like 15 to 56 sexual partners. So that's in that same percentage of upper 20%. In the other direction with those men in the bottom, it's gone down. It's gone down. I don't want to misquote this, so it's in general terms. I don't have it in front of me, but it's gone down from an average a sexually active life from like 5 to like 3 now. So it also, I'm looking at a different one. It might also be 7 to 4, but you get the idea. It's gone down for the guys that don't make the grade as a Chad.
Yeah.
However, you can go on OnlyFans today and you can support the woman of your dreams. And that is Brad Hayes. You can look at our thumbnail and you can see. And
Oh,
she
you're
will
savage,
talk
man.
to you.
You're savage, man.
So what do you think about this? So I'll throw this out as a theory. Prior to the sexual revolution, there was a hierarchical view of selection. All right. You mostly saw most of the really wealthy and good-looking people were in or attracted to that group. And there was basically a system or a caste system that was put in place before it was unfettered hypergamy. So guys that were in that 80%, or if you broke it out to 20%, then people that were 30 to 40%, they were always being able to find mates because women were understanding of the fact that there was a certain level of man they couldn't get, so they were willing to compromise. Problem right now is women aren't willing to compromise, and and now men are getting to the point where they're not willing to compromise. And they'll go buy a doll instead of compromising.
Yeah, the MGTOW movement is there for a reason, though. I think that when you have these strong, independent girls and the list of expectations, they definitely, like, he was like, what'd you call it, the Ariel princess wedding life? Was that what it was? Yeah, and so
Disney Ariel Princess Dream, right?
Yeah, and so like these girls are on this right here, and they're seeing dudes in Lambo. Yeah, they're looking at the Lambos and the high lifestyle, for the very small percentage of guys, and the average guy that is a good dude that would give her a good life, they're just passing right up because they're empowered now, and so I don't personally think that that's ever going to change anytime soon. I think that's going to continue to get worse.
It's extremely misleading because the women, Phil, that go online and look at that, there isn't a man out there that doesn't at least acknowledge a woman that's interested in wanting attention, even if she's average. And so for her, this looks like he's holding her glass slipper as Cinderella.
Oh, 100%. 100%. 100%.
Do we want to get back to Phil's dissertation on why Chads play and Brad's pay, and then we can get into some real life examples?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to throw a few things out there. I just did a little bit more research, and it's just basically, in that phase when she's an estrus, or why Chads generally get it and Brads have to pay, is that sexual desire, it can't be negotiated, it can't anything, it's either there, it's not, number one. Number two, it's the attraction to mate preferences, and the masculinity that you touched on, Raith. Girls are cued on what, facial hair, a full head of hair, your symmetry and the way you're built, and the muscularity, your height, all of these things girls are ticking off subconsciously 100%, scientifically backed. I also want to say that, in that masculinity thing, strong voice, your jawline is definitely something that these girls are looking for. Creativity, believe it or not, if you're a musician, it's no wonder that musicians had all those groupies back in the 80s, right? It was a thing, these girls, they would drop it for them 100%. It's compatible genes. And so have you guys ever heard of major I can't even say the word histocompatibility complex. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I've never heard of it.
Is that picking similar? Is that one?
Yeah. So it's an adaptive immune response, believe it or not, that human beings have. And it's based off of pheromones and scent. Like, you could see a hot girl, but there's something about her that you're on.
Yeah.
And it's likewise, and we have evolved as a species to keep the inbreeding and all these other things happening. So it's amazing. So clothing and grooming, ovulatory shift hypothesis proposes that women's behavior during fertile phases should also reflect evolutionary adaptations for reproductive success. Kind of like what Thor was talking about with that girl with a lot of sexual energy. She knows it and she dresses for it. So they're dressing during that ovulatory shift phase when they're in estrus, 100%.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it to see a woman with that kind of agency and is aware of it.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. The competitiveness with other women. This is one of the last pieces I wanted to share with you guys before we can just kind of bounce it around a little bit. It says parental investment theory posits that the idea that natural selection designed each sex to have different mating strategies based on how much investment the sex is required to devote to offspring of their survival. The sex that invests more in offspring should be more intersexually selective or picky when choosing a sexual partner, because they have more time and resources to lose if they make a poor choice, kind of like what Thor was alluding earlier in the stream. The other sex should be more intersexually competitive or competitive with members of the same sex in order to access and attract more selective sex. So basically that's saying one thing, if you're at the top of the heap, you're going to get the lion's share of the girls. Guys that are sitting on the sideline, guys that Raith was talking about, the average gent in this day and age, they're more or less on the sidelines where, the big guys that are getting the lion's share of the poon, as Thor would say, are competing with each other, and so that's an interesting thought. What are your thoughts on that, Thor?
Well, about the women are competing with each other for
100%
access, and for those guys that do start to tap into that, it's an amazing thing. And I think probably the best way to tap into it is to really get your social game up, because don't discount social proof if you want to be a Chad. Most of those guys, and we talk about alpha and beta, you can go, in my opinion, you could be too far on the alpha, and that's where you end up in government custody for sure. But you can definitely, use your social proof, your social circle, and you can access, what we're saying here as far as access to young, beautiful, fertile women, basically throughout almost your entire adult productive life as a man, if you decide to do so. Once you start, it builds level on level. A lot of men don't want that, though. Let's be fair to the watchers that want to just have a single wife and they want to produce children. And God bless those people, I will say, as a non-Christian, God bless you, because really that's the backbone of the society. And we need those children being born and raised by two parents for sure. We definitely advocate for, good parents. Absolutely. That being said, though, you need to be aware of this if you're that guy, Phil, that wants that family. Because here's the thing. Because of a woman's dualistic nature, you have to realize your fantasy woman that only loves you forever and ever because she said so is not the truth. No. It never will be. No. There is no one.
Say it again, Thor. There is no one.
There is no one.
Your mama.
It's just for me. Oh my goodness, she touched my pee-pee.
Oh man, I'm in love.
Guys, you got to realize the nature of the female is that and this is any relationship. It goes through cycles, ebbs and flows. There will be some times where she's bored. And what do girls all want? They all want to just have fun. So there will be times when the attraction level will wane. And her inbuilt firmware is going to say, regardless of her age, I need quality genetics of a man that does the tingle thing for me. Even if she can't actually form those words and understandings. And you'll hear this, you'll hear this throughout that relationship occasionally. Has anybody out there ever heard? I'm just not feeling myself. I feel like I've lost my purpose. And then that's often followed with, I just need some space to find my purpose, right?
It's not you. It's not you, Thor. It's me.
It's me. Right,
Yeah,
right. It's
exactly.
not you, it's me.
I
You
just
know?
need some space.
Yeah. I need to find a new snot rocket
Yeah, and that's
for my snot pocket.
yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that that's their woman's existential fear. A fear, you know. I read that on Rollo Tomasi's, you know, The Red Dress. That's a great blog post, by the way, if you guys haven't read that
Oh,
one.
that is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that's their existential fear is what he says is basically are false signals from low value men. They communicate that they're men of status and they really aren't.
Right.
And so they've wasted that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I get that.
You do. And we're all of us here, every man that's alive is a contextual alpha. How many contexts is the alpha in order to maintain that? You got to be aware of what we're talking about here with the Chad's lay and the Brad's pay, because you will be a Brad that's paying at some point. I mean, essentially at the lowest level, and I'm going to get killed for this, but I'm going to say it anyway, guys. Listen, women are problems. Men were problem solvers. Fits together like a hand in glove. And that's just the reality. So, you know, be aware that this will, at some day, there will be a pull of every woman. And then that's where you come in to solve that problem and reestablish, you know, your attractiveness. So even if you think I'm married and you're living that dream, God bless you. I want you to do that and have those children and raise them together. Statistics and probabilities will tell you, even though you know people that haven't lived this way, that at some point after those kids leave, empty nest will hit her like a ton of effing bricks, and she'll either end up on SSRI, antidepressants, and or the personal trainer may have a visit or two.
Oh man,
Bill, you're a personal trainer.
Hey, shh.
Let me throw this out there that you
Yeah.
mentioned this. I Googled what percentage of women are on birth control in 2022, and it says current contraceptive use increased with age from 38.7% among women 15 to 19 to 74.8% among women aged 40 to 49. The chances of them getting pregnant are slim. Why are they taking birth control, you think, 40 to 49, when their chances of becoming pregnant are really low?
Interesting question, because there's so many different varieties. Is that strictly hormonal birth control?
I just Googled. I'm not sure which one. It's got a graph, but I can't see it. It's too small.
Can I comment on that while he's looking at that, Thor? Can I say something on that? I'm going to say that, you know, that's just a sign, basically, like girls that haven't went all the way into like menopause yet and stopped having periods, and they have a fear.
Okay.
I have a fear of getting pregnant. Okay. You know, the kids are grown. I'm divorced. I hit the lottery. I got the house. I got the Jag in the garage. I got half his stack. Now I'm gonna go get me some hot cock. But I don't want to get pregnant at 47 years old. So I'm gonna call the doctor and get on birth control.
So then what that means is a lot of women 40 to 49, I mean, I would think are still out running around.
Well, there's actually a medical reason for that I have right here, and part of it is perimenopause. Having progestins released regularly for a woman regulates her period where it would be on and off and cause the hot flashes and things like that. I mean, Proverin is an estrogen progestin blend for women, and that's perimenopausal. So some of that's prescribed not particularly for birth control per se, but it is the same hormones that's used in hormone replacement for women that enter menopause. And we could do some interesting talks on that, because talk about massive body shifts and psychology shifts is a woman running through menopause. And for some, it's horrifying, you know, and to lose that fertility and lose her womanhood, so to speak. Look at women who do go through menopause. They look different. It's a really strange thing, you know. The body changes.
Everything changes. Yeah,
Mentality
even their
changes.
bone structure does.
Right. And look at some men who lose their androgens at the same time later in life. Look at them and look at the women that have lost their capacity to produce hormones. Their bodies almost look identical.
Hey,
Really
Thor, let me bounce this off you though. But wouldn't a better alternative be for ladies, instead of taking birth control, to get on some HRT or get with a hormone doctor and get that calibrated through like some therapy versus taking the pill?
Oh, God help me. I wish that was the case. But, you know, general practitioners will use what's available and just look and go, oh, well, this is what everybody else does, so I'm doing it too. It's safe for me just to throw a birth control pill out.
I'll be honest with you. This week I signed up 3 middle-aged ladies.
This
week.
That's fantastic.
It's just like
it adds to the quality of their life.
Oh man, massively.
Honestly, I think that it would save a lot of gray divorce as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. 100%. Did I lose you guys?
No. Let's get back to the Chad story.
Yeah,
I was just warning guys about, Chads show up anywhere, and if you're that guy that has a great family and things are really good, it's basically got to be ever vigilant of yourself, because as soon as you stop being Chad in some capacity, you start being Brad too much, Chads start to show up.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and that's relationship satisfaction. While some studies have shown that the fertile phase, women might be more attracted to flirt more and initiate sex more often with men who are not their partner. Newer studies do not support the hypothesis that females change who they consider desirable reproductive partners when more fertile. Women in relationships tend to be more assertive and independent during the fertile phase. So if you aren't handling your business, it's over.
Yeah, say that again. I want everybody to understand that. That's part of what we were just talking about.
Oh, what, the last blurb?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to read the whole thing?
No, just that last blurb.
The last, this is perfect, brother. It says women in relationships may tend to be more assertive and independent during the fertile phase. 100%. So if you're not handling your business in the relationship, or she has poor relationship qualities with you, she's going to step out on you. I know girls that do that all the time.
So here's your actionable advice, gentlemen. If the bedroom starts to wane, this is where you get into trouble, because the issue is every time you can actually have a woman have an orgasm, and I know this might sound beta to some, but when you have very satisfying sex and it's maintained actively throughout the relationship, it maintains a certain level of brain chemistry, including oxytocin, vasopressin for you, others that really help aid in the emotional bonding process. It's there for a strong reason, and that's to ensure that the children at least get old enough that they can survive on their own primarily. And it's important. That really will go a long way to cementing that relationship. It's often said that sex is the glue that bonds the relationship together, and that is a known fact. And I would argue with anybody that's not, sex is not the most important thing. Okay, but it is the glue that holds everything together, and without the glue, pieces fall off. And that drive in her is just, it is strong. You can go for a while, but it will eventually move off, and the beta orbiters will start to show up and start looking like contextual alphas. And so you really need, if you have a dead bedroom, it's a good indication that you might want to look into this area and start correcting things.
Let me ask you something, Thor, on that topic. Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Yeah.
Then, say dude's handling his business and he's taking care of business, but she's promoting the dead bedroom.
Yeah. Then there's still, there is an attraction issue then. I mean, if he's doing his part and she's promoting dead bedroom, here's my first instinct, and probably most likely, there's already a Chad knocking her socks off.
More than likely.
I'm telling you guys, you'll say, no way, Thor, you can't know that. Hey, I'm going off probabilities and experience over 60, my 60 years. It's just that if women's getting her socks knocked off by that alpha context that is in, she is not interested in other guys. Will women have sex just for pleasurable purposes without emotion? Yes, they can. It seems the older they get, they're more capable of that. But primarily, that is not their primary mode of operation with sex.
Yeah, it's got to be attached to a feeling, correct?
Or an emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, feelings and emotions, 100%. And that made me want to read this really quick. And I got this from the Red Dress, just because it kind of ties in with this. It says, what our subconscious truly wants is a pairing with a woman who has genuine desire for us. Hot, unmitigated, Darwinistic monkey sex is usually the manifestation of that genuine desire. But there are many more announced ways our male psyches will try to determine it. In past essays, I've had men and women run me up the flagpole for suggesting a man never buy lingerie for his girlfriend or wife. And this is what he quoted. He says, and so this is the guys talking. It says right here, he says, how's she supposed to know what I like if I don't buy it for her? And then the strong, independent woman says, I love getting something sexy from my man. Sucks to be you. So it's interesting that duality in them, right? It's just,
Yeah.
And so, I think with the Brad Pays part of that thing is these guys, they think that they have to lead with their wallets and not with who they are as a man. What do you think about that, Raith?
I don't know. I've never led my wallet, so I haven't. I mean, it's always been, what I'm attracted to, and I go for attraction. And if they're not interested, there's another 5 or 6 in the same restaurant, same bar.
I will say this:
He said 5 or 6 in the same restaurant.
there is such a thing as wallet game, guys.
Oh, man.
Right?
There is. I mean, and I guess as you get older, there's an assumption that you have money, or that you've survived this long and you have a decent looking car, decent house and stuff. There's an understanding that you've made it, but it's not something I lead with. I don't say, hey, you want to see my car? You want to see my house, or anything like that.
Yeah. Guys, the whole point of the duality of females mating nature, it changes throughout their life cycle for sure, but it's ever present. And often, I've heard it said, I'll acknowledge Rollo on it, that a woman could go feral at any moment. They do make their own choices. And sometimes you're doing the right things. There's always that chance that, she has been alpha widowed and he shows back up. And he just so happens that he is a professional dom in BDSM. Just write it up to the game, gentlemen. Move along.
Well, I don't see any difference now. I don't see any difference. What's the percentage between Chads and Brads now? Is it 80-20, 20%?
Well, yeah,
Chads?
that's essentially what we're talking about. It's alpha Fs, beta.
As we're speaking here, I'm thinking back to the time when I hung out and was living a Chad life. There were probably 15, 20 of us guys every evening would stand around the corner there and drink beer and talk about work or whatever, women. But there was probably only maybe 1 or 2 other of those guys besides me that were getting women, and none of them were getting women as much as I was. So it was the same back then, other than the fact that they didn't have a social media platform to post it out on. And the simps, or the betas, whatever you want to call them, the guys that weren't getting laid, they couldn't supplicate or seek girls' approval on social media by liking it, or they just had the opportunity. They actually had to go up to a girl and compliment her, and most of them weren't brave enough to do that if they wanted to simp for a girl. So it was a lot different back then, and the girls wouldn't go just for the guy with the money. I just didn't see that back then like I see it now. And as I said earlier, I think it's because our society has become, or constantly growing more materialistic, and as men lead, then the women follow. You have all these women out on social media looking for the dollar. So it's maybe not all of them, but some of them. But then doesn't that go back to a woman looking for someone to take care of her also? She, of course, wants the guy that is going to provide for her rather than the guy that doesn't have a job or just got out of jail. Although they will sleep with those guys and be very attracted to that type of man. But ideally, she wants both, doesn't she? She wants that guy that's attracted. And one of the guys commented here. I wanted to read this comment from one of the fellas.
Which one? I'll put it up.
It's Roduku talked about Instagram being evil. I wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I'll bring it up.
He said that the more narcissistic you are, the more benefits you have from using it. And he makes a good point there, because back in the day when I was being the Chad, I was very narcissistic. Girls love that. Those 3 dark triad traits, girls are attracted to that. I mean, you can not like that all you want, but it's a dang fact. Girls like men like that, and it's my personal belief, because they know that guy's going to survive and he's going to make it. And if they're with him, guess what? They're going to survive and make it too. I took care of my women. Nobody messed with them. I physically defended them before. And so they knew that when they're with me, they were taken care of. Not money-wise, but they were just safe with me, even though I was selfish and had other girls and lived that type of lifestyle. So people don't like to hear that, but that's very true.
It goes to what I was saying earlier. Okay, I think I don't have any proof, and I haven't done a study, but I think there was a social hierarchy before the 20th century. You dated within your social structure.
Yeah.
Okay. And there were Chads in the social structure that you were dating in. They were the top earners of that social structure. We don't have a financial social structure now, so there's no hierarchy. Okay, because money's pretty much irrelevant right now. All right, because we've went to a system where fame has more value than money.
Attention.
Yeah, because if you're famous, whether you have money or not, if you're a social influencer and you have that influence,
Status.
then you can pull women, and you can pull women that are probably above the standard that you would have been able to pull 70 years ago if you're the same guy. So it's a different structure, and it's a different dating structure because there's no hierarchy in it anymore. The famous and the rich can have all women, and all women think they deserve that now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So so basically what you're saying is back in the day, if they were on the other side of the tracks, they never cross mingled. Okay, understood on that. I have very limited understanding on that. I'm glad I just learned something from you. Thank you, Raith. That's good. So that makes a lot of sense. I think, the objectification of women, and they have such a problem with that in this day and age, but they objectify themselves on social media, on OnlyFans, all these other things. It's amazing to me that, I think the big push for leading with your wallet, and that's why Brads pay, because they know if they have some dollars, they're going to get the poon. It doesn't matter. Okay. And so they're cheating the game instead of leveling themselves up. They're leading with their wallets. I know you can't understand that, Raith, because you've never done that, but a lot of guys, I think, do that in this day and age because they don't want to put the work in, right? Would you agree to that at least?
I'll agree to that. And I'll also agree that there are a lot more people out there faking wealth or faking fame or notoriety. And I think that causes women to mistrust all men.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of their biggest fears, right? Is being faked on sexual market value. They don't want to be saddled with a weak man. They want a strong, capable man.
Aren't they trying to pass laws against that?
Come on, talk about it, Mark.
No, seriously, isn't there some law that kind of coincides with the Loverboy law, doesn't it?
Oh,
I mean, it does, but like I said, the reality of it is, so if they pass the law and guys quit doing it, does that benefit women or does it hinder women? Because I think it'll hinder them, because I think it'll force more men to be more selective or to walk away like the MGTOW guys.
And so, being
we're going to see.
Yeah,
we're going to see.
Well, front row seats to that, isn't that right, Thor?
Absolutely.
It reminds me of the Little Rascals. You guys remember? I don't know which one it was. He had the He-Man's woman haters club.
He-Man woman hater club.
That was
That's
the
DragonShip, right?
Yeah.
It's the DragonShip. I think that. All right, then that makes you Spanky, Mark.
Yeah,
who's alfalfa? Phil, are you alfalfa underneath that hat?
I am. You guys are on to me, man. You guys literally have no chill, man.
Who's Spanky, man?
Spanky, that's it.
And the problem with trying to manage attraction through social constructs or those kind of things is it always means someone's going to repel against it because it's too extreme for the majority of that male or female.
Okay. So, Raith, I'm going to bring up a slide for you since you alluded to it earlier. And we talked about ovulatory shift. We talked about the science. Guys, I just want to do a little housekeeping here. Be sure and like and subscribe. Guys, if you can, go join RP Thor's YouTube membership. There will be exclusive videos provided just to members over there, and it's going to be quite a bit more uncensored. that being said, here on the Dragon Ship, we like to chop it up, have a good time. And guys, we're going to throw our opinions out here. Even if we don't have the science, we will use the science to back up our opinions. But the idea is to get opinions out there and start a conversation in your mind so that you go look. This is the big deal. Had a few folks say, love your scientific, and this is not a scientific analysis show. We're going to talk some dirty shit. And we're going to have fun with it. And we're going to laugh about it and say, you dirty bastard, that was bullshit. So it's kind of fun that way. But it also has kind of a serious thread that rolls through it. And the reason we do that is because men really don't understand the basics when trying to form relationships. Of course, we talk about sex because, God, who doesn't want to talk about sex, right? I mean, that's interesting to all of us because we're human beings, both men and women. And part of this whole Chad lays and Brad pays, it's pretty obvious that this exists. I'm going to bring up the timeline because it does change in a woman's life cycle, and it's been identified, of course, as corollary evidence. But let's take a look at it and get your comments. This is from the Rational Male, and let me present this right here. Bear with me as I bring up this window. This should be fun. You guys may have seen it before, but we'll have a discussion on it. Here we go. I hope you guys can see that. Maybe I can do a command zoom real quick and get that thing zoomed just a little bit more. How are we doing there? You seeing that?
I went the other way.
Oh, did it not zoom?
Yeah, it zoomed away. There we go.
There we go. All right, here we go, guys. There we go. Now you can see it. So this is kind of shows beta, which we will consider Brad's today, and we will show her preference for alpha in short term. We're talking about short-term mating strategy. Certainly leans towards the Chads. I think we can all agree with that. Absolutely. And I have to acknowledge somebody right now, gentlemen. There is something that's coming up, and the war horn has been sounded by our long lost Viking son, Danny Arnold. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. You definitely support the whole thing and this whole operation. We're going to see you guys live in Las Vegas next week. That will be pretty interesting show. Come and join the membership, and we'll get even more for you than that. Appreciate that so much, Danny. Let's get back to this.
Good job, Danny. Thank you.
Yeah, he is a strong supporter, and he definitely contributes a great deal. Skull, my friend.
Yeah, what a guy.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to look at this, and it starts at age 15. I mean, let's be honest, guys. I mean, I'm going to ruffle some serious fucking feathers. God bless the women. Honestly, they're sweetest little kids. Little girls are so damn smart. They get smarter and more chatty real quick, better than boys. And lo and behold, puberty comes along, and the next thing you turn around, and I have a daughter, you turn around and you look, and you got a woman standing there. And I know it says 15 here, but in some cases as low as 13 years old, and something happens, and they kind of stay like that for a really long time in adulthood. They now have agency, at least because they're fully fertile, even though at least technically capable of breeding woman. And this changes things because now she can be taken care of. She can be desired. She's not a child anymore. You can't say that. We'd like to, but technically and medically, there is a huge change. So we look at that, and we're looking here at the short term. Hormones are raging. You got that going on. We're not going to talk about that age, but you guys can all extrapolate, especially you, Mark, with a young woman that fits this age frame, and you can attest to the fact that her girlfriends kind of stop emotionally right there, and they start experiencing womanhood.
True.
Would that be fair to say?
100.
Yes.
And then we don't have to get into that because we're polite here, but we're still going to piss everybody off. It's going to go right up, and they're exploring the alpha option because nature is driving them to do that. The best possible genes at a very short window, and then we get into social constructs, which is party years. What do we tell these young gals? You can do anything, you can do everything, and they can. And then we get them into colleges, and we get them educated with these social constructs here in their 20s, and we say, you go, girl, don't settle down, date them all, get the bad guy, get the soft guy, get all that stuff.
Yeah, don't forget to add the sex fuel, man. Alcohol in college.
Alcohol. It definitely reduces inhibitions and gives plausible deniability. Oh, I was drunk. He was hot. Not my fault. It allows for accountability to be shunted away.
Yep. I dropped a nickel and picked it up, and it happened.
Exactly. Why are you looking? I just have workout clothes that expose the most massive camel toe ever, and you should not look.
Jesus.
Right? Anyway, so we have fun with all this stuff, but that's the party years, and it runs right through the most fertile moment in the peak sexual market value. When we talk about agency, we're talking about sexual agency here. This is where she is so fertile, and she is universally attractive to men of every age. And why is that?
True.
Because of our primary drives, that is the most likely target for us to move DNA forward into the future and create a legacy successfully. And then we get into this age where there's an epiphany. She's getting older. Her agency has waned. She cannot compete with this younger self. In some cases, this younger self is peaking even back here in this section here. And now she's a little older, got some wrinkles, a little wear and tear. Things start happening
Mileage.
biologically in this epiphany phase. There's a transition. This is where we also say she starts to look at the beta long term because she needs provisioning, because there's a phenomena that occurs. And this is really wild because I watch it happen with my daughter's friends as they approach this. It's called baby rabies. One of them has one. Everybody goes and fawns over it. And the next thing you know is, I don't know if I want any, but boy, it'd be nice, Let me start looking for this guy if I don't already have one on lock.
I'm ready to start a family.
Right. And we'll get into other things, but that's kind of primary, and that kind of becomes a serious need. A lot of gals that can get a guy on lock and have a baby, this works fantastically, and now they have security. And if they were on birth control and then they found this guy, went off, got pregnant, there is some indicators that would state that that's great, I have a family. By the time the kid weans, 3 to 5 years out, she has this security of this beta, but her body betrays her. She's a little older. Now she's got herself back in shape. Other men look. Alpha reinvestment, reinterest starts to occur. Here we are somewhere around age 37. I can't tell you how many clients that I've had to consult that are in this age, both men and women, that actually are affected by this and don't understand what is going on here. A lot of loss of attraction here. You can kind of speculate. Is it, the birth control? Is it that we got fat after we became a family? What's going on here? Could it be exposure to, guys from our past? This is right about the time where you get a 15-year high school reunion, and old people show up and express an interest, or somebody finds you on Facebook and
that social media aspect. Yeah, they run across those cocks on social media for sure. That's for sure.
Here is the problem. You got the beta. Long-term security is always present and always needed, but this part right here, and a lot of times, a lot of women I've run into, and I'm using personal experience here, guys. I am not broadcast everywhere. They really, have a re-interest in their sexuality at this point right here. This is a little burst. This is my theory only. There's a burst right here before they enter perimenopause. And that's kind of the last gas of that dying 8-cylinder engine that's misfiring on 4. Just add the fuel in a rich mixture, right? And hit the accelerator to the floor. Yeah. Get it to the finish line. You don't care about the mileage.
And what's the age range on that again? That's what, basically like 36?
37 to 45 in that range.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Yeah, I'm going to step out and be a miscreant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, back after that, it looks like the evidence is pushing strongly back into the beta security side. We're all the good man. I need a man that just needs me and would take care of me. He would do anything for me and worship the ground that I work on. I've lived such a life. I've carried all of this stuff for so long. This is something that I earned just by my mere existence. And I've heard this, and you can look at it on Facebook too. You can always tell because all of the memes that come out are focused on things such as that, How dare a man not give me happiness after so many years? I mean, it's just meme after meme, And I feel kind of bad because that's a tough place to be, you know, because that's buy a dog and die alone era, you know,
Yep.
for a lot of ladies. Now, if you have never been able to hook up and get that marriage or that, this is a very sad place to be. A lot of men will see this party years, and that's where, you know, you have all these experiences. You got alphas in your past, and they don't feel they can compete, nor do they want to when there isn't an endless supply of this down here. Women that have a stronger desire for short-term alpha, you're a bit older. Oh, and the women hate this, and even the media will downplay this, but this is the natural order of things nearly worldwide. Women seek men that are older, more established, and have primacy. That's because the security aspect is very attractive to them. You know, and socially it is as well. So interesting that Rollo had come up with this so many years ago. It fits right in with the Chad Blaze and the Brad's pay. And really, they're just looking for a guy that can actually jump between the two. Seem to be the most successful.
I think you got to have some compassion for the women because they've been brought up with this lie that they can do everything men can. They're just like men. And then what happens is they go out and party and sow their oats. That used to be just for men years ago. They didn't tell women to do that. So they go out and sow their oats in their 20s. They hit about 30, then they want to find a man. And they're not as well. Who is it? I won't say the two women's name, but two women on social media called men predatorial that seek younger women. Although they were enjoying those older men at the time, now that they're older and 30 or 32, they consider those men predatorial. And that's what happens. They get to a certain age, and they don't have the opportunities they had in their younger years. But they bought into the little lie that they can do the same thing men can, and it's not true. Because a man, even 40, 50, 60, can still go out with girls in their 20s, should he choose to.
It can be quite successful relationships too. I've witnessed.
Yeah.
It's not as predatory as you might think.
How often?
That's
No,
just a shame.
I
That's
agree.
just a
This is
shaming
just-
tactic. Mhm.
Yeah, that's what they said. I disagree because they were the ones going out with the older men then, but now that they can't do that, I would say that women are very competitive and they're ruthless. So they look at the younger women now and are probably jealous, envious, and angry at the younger women, not looking at themselves, knowing that they were the younger women at one time.
Yeah.
So they're pointing the finger.
Yeah, there's a few exceptions that understand their femininity and how to use that instead of that embitterment, like I'm owed.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's
those
not-
women actually
right.
don't last long, and they get snapped up even at the older age. I've saw it. It happens, and typically they will have that, you know, kind of a high feminine energy and kind of an innocence. And even though they're older, and when that is applied in a relationship like that, guys pick up on that and they kind of get okay with it. Now, is it risky? Well,
Yeah.
those women do get snapped up, though. I can see them, and
Yeah, and it's because you don't want to compete with the woman you want to entertain. That's
Yeah.
why. I mean, seriously, does it? I mean, at that point, you know, I mean, you just don't want to compete. You know, I wanted to comment really quick, Thor, on this chat. It says it's Arx Hominin. He says it's no surprise that considering the average marriage age being CA 28 for women, the average marriage lasts about 7 years, which is also the time it takes for a child to become independent. I think he commented that when you were talking about the timeline. I think that's an important thing. And he says, you know, I just think that was an important topic to throw in there. And he says, and he continues on, it says, so that is exactly the time when they develop the alpha reinterest.
100% true. Actually, in my old course that I never released, and it'll be for future episode, I'll bring out the charts, especially the divorce over ages and age groups, the demographic of that. It fits it very good. This 7-year thing is really interesting. There's also a couple other bumps in there that you got to get past that seem to be kind of universals when it comes to things that drive, you know, at least divorce. It's strange. There are peaks and valleys in divorce in times from the time that they actually get married, and some of it involves children when the children leave. So it's really fascinating that there is a correlation there. What does it mean? It means there's something there that we could look to in our evolutionary past that drove that sort of. Remember, we didn't live as long as we do now, so we have some repeating cycles that definitely come up that, you know, you want a long-lasting relationship, you're going to need to be aware of that you're up against from nature. Nature has done that to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
like-
let's see.
I also threw this comment right up here. Christian Pezentes, I hope I'm saying that correctly, says teaching them to be independent and career driven and making them go to school instead of marrying else is a big mistake. He's talking about young girls. That was a continued thing. I think that, you're going to see more and more of that push. Obviously you want your children to be educated, but, having them understand the fundamentals. I've got a daughter that's 18. And I told her, if you're going to focus on school, focus on school. She wants to get into medical. I said, you got to find something that's going to be solid for you so you can have a little bit something there. And then once you're done with that, then focus on a family, and then go back to work once you have your family. There's no sense in.
Phil, you brought up probably the most salient point here. All of us men on the panel right now have children.
Yes,
and I want to provide at least some sort of actionable thoughts that people can take back and can think about and investigate, especially everybody in the chat. And guys, if you would, we love your questions. It'd be really appreciated if you throw a super chat for any price. It doesn't matter. And or go over to RP Thor and join the membership. We're going to get into this way in depth. I'm going to do some live streams over there on the membership. Right now, there's only a couple guys in there, so it should be really fun. But, that salient point is we have daughters. What would we tell our daughters, knowing that we know, at least we have a concept and an understanding of female nature? How would you preface it? And we'll go around the table. How would you preface it with your daughters today? My daughter has grown and has done a lot of great things. I would like to think that I implied it with my thoughts, but now that I have this knowledge, it might be a little different. How I would make that approach? How would you do it today so that she is more in control of her choices when it comes to her inbuilt duality and mate selection? How would you train them or teach them? What would you leave them with if you just had a couple points to make? Just a couple.
You want me to go first? I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll jump on that.
Parents, and we've done this to some extent. Either through social construct or warnings or examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so basically with my daughter, from a relatively young age, I'm going to say 13, 14, we started talking about sex and what it is and what those urges are, and learning how to be respectful and respecting yourself at this time in your life and not making any rash decisions on those urges that you have. And realizing that your chastity, believe it or not, is going to, whether you protect it or give it away, is going to have a direct result in who you're going to be later in life when you're a full-grown woman and you have a life of your own. She's got a little bit of a cheat code. She goes to a private school, so there's a little bit of that, influence there as well. And she's got friends that have already dabbled, in having boyfriends and sex and things like that. And she looks down upon them, and she understands that, the appropriate thing to do based on what she's learned through myself and through school is to hold her chastity until she, gets married, if at all possible, and having that control mechanism in your mind, understanding those hormones are raging, those feelings you're having are completely natural and normal, and understand that, young boys, especially when you get into, upper teens, early 20s, there's not going to be a long-term prospect there. I mean, they're very few and far between that you hear about people that get together in high school and stay together for the rest of their life. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the prospect of that is very, very small. And so looking at that, I just told her, I said, you might want to consider that, because say you work on yourself and do very well for yourself in school, and you get in the medical field and you're ready to have a family and meet a good man. And he says, oh, by the way, tell me about your life. And he says, no, I can't do that with you. Along with the damage that comes along with giving away your chastity, and the causality of what happens when you take too many of them. Too many bodies at a young age. So that's pretty much the way I've handled that with her. The decision is ultimately hers, and I just tried to educate her a little bit on, the aspects of it. It's amazing to me. It's a shame that, a lot of girls, they didn't have that opportunity when they were younger. Mark, what do you got?
Well, I think it's up to the father to guide and teach their daughter what, the consequences of her actions, not so much as the mother. Because as a man, you know what the men are wanting when they're coming there, especially when they're young. Let's say my daughter's 16, so she's dating. I was that age one time, and I know what I wanted, and I've encouraged her to marry if she decides to somewhere between 20 and 22, but not to marry a man in his 20s. I don't know about you guys, but in my 20s, I was married at 24, but I wasn't ready to settle down yet. Men in their 20s are still wanting to run around and spread their seed, so to speak. So I explain all that to her, and she has a difficult time finding. I mean, she's dating now, but most of the boys turn into, how do I say, they're weak. I don't know if they don't have a father at home or what the problem is. And it's very well. She came up and sat on my lap last night and was crying because her and this friend quit talking. I said, well, you're going to go through a lot of guys. I said, it's just the way it is. You know, I've told her not to be sleeping with all these guys, of course. And like Phil said, ultimately it's her choice. But I explained to her the consequences of that. And also I encourage her to marry, but I don't encourage my sons to marry here in the States, because she has everything to gain and really nothing to lose. I know some women think that, oh, well, what if I give myself to this man and then he just bails out on me? Well, she's not really going to be at a loss for anything, especially if they have kids. She'll still have her kids provided for her. So I just try to explain to her that, you know, how young boys are, how I was, and what most of them want. And of course, at those young ages, they're not looking for anything serious. Usually, they may think they are. They think they're in love because they're thinking with that small head instead of their big head. So really, that's all I can do is just tell her how things are from their point. Give her an understanding of what these boys want and what a man wants when she gets ready to get married. What kind of a woman they're looking for, and it's a woman, a man. The kind of man that I want to marry her is the kind of man he probably is not going to accept a woman with a high body count. He wants a woman who has not been with a lot of guys, and a woman who is that can take care of him and provide a peaceful home for him and everything, you know, a mother to the children, and somebody who can. That's what women don't understand. I don't care how much a woman makes. I don't care what her career is, and that's why I try to explain to her. A man that you want, a good man, is going to provide a good lifestyle. Doesn't care about that stuff as long as you're not sitting around the house watching soap operas, eating chocolate, and getting fat. And if you're doing something, you don't have to have a career. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to do all that. That's the way I look at it, because I've always taken care of my women. I didn't have to worry about it. So that's my take on it.
Raith, if you had advice for your daughters on their inbuilt sexual nature and navigating that successfully in relationships.
Yeah, we were all very open with my kids about sex, and I mean, I taught them that it was pleasurable and all those things, but there was there was responsibility that went with it, and that's what a lot of people aren't teaching their kids today. There is responsibility that goes with it, and you know, even with the best intentions of birth control stuff, you know, there's still a small percentage of people that still get pregnant on birth control. And, you know, that's the first thing I taught all my kids, even my sons. There's responsibility that comes with sex. All right. And then, you know, I taught them that if you're going to do that, you're going to have to accept responsibility for any of the outcome that comes from it. And I think that kept most of them on the straight and narrow, you know. But in the same instance, you know, most of my kids have been married long term. So, you know, and with their mothers, it was a long term marriage for, you know, my wife and I. So with my first 3 kids, and with my second family after my first wife died, I mean, I think I've instilled that in them. You know, so, but like I said, it's more about teaching them responsibility and taking responsibility for their actions.
So if you had to teach them about their sexuality and would you even talk to them about this inbuilt part of their sexuality that presses for short-term alpha and long-term beta needs, and how to balance that?
I think probably with my daughters, I taught them more to respect themselves, and that by respecting yourself and respecting what the outcomes you want in your life, were probably going to be more beneficial to control those urges.
Okay.
And with my sons, it was more about, understand that, you're going to be in situations where you're going to have opportunities. And I didn't say don't take advantage of those opportunities. I kind of left that up to them. But men have to create those opportunities, and women can respond to the creation. So that's kind of where I left it with my daughters. It's up to you how you respond to that created opportunity. And I left that with my son, the same thing. If you go out and create the opportunity, take responsibility for it.
Okay. Fair enough. Guys, we have another one. Let's go to one of our good friends and give him a super chat. Guys, this really helps the show. Get the war horn. Abdel over there on the Mid-East, we appreciate you and your faith. Love the show and the panel. Chat school. Interesting. I'm going to encourage everybody. Guys, we would love to answer your questions. Send a super chat, join the membership. Once again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on all our channels. Every man here has a channel and is a content provider. And shout out to those guys that jumped over from Rule Zero. Arcs, we appreciate that. Arcs, Hominin, and some of the other guys definitely appreciate your patronage here, and we will try to pump this content out. I will get back to myself, and I will cause some shit to be stirred again so that you can all smell the flavor. Smell what RP's got cooking. So here's my take on it. If I had it to do it now, I will tell you I did this originally, but I would change a little bit of my approach if I had it to do over again. But essentially, my mentality with my wife, my daughter, and my sons is they were my property. I owned them as property and had to viciously protect them and secure them and put opportunities in their path so they could be successful from square one. That was my burden of performance. And it's a mentality. I didn't speak it like that, but I treated it as such. Of course, anybody taking this clip will get pissed off of it. That's the level of thought that you would need. And it's the level of thought that caused some conflict. And the reason it did is because sometimes I have to make choices of not being making a daddy's girl, or making a son my best friend, or treating my wife as my very best friend when I had a tough decision to make because somebody's rebelling or somebody's doing something that's disrupting, the continuity of the family. And I was very fortunate that my daughter had brothers, because it was easy to talk about the fact that as a young woman who was the youngest and is now fertile and actually capable of being a mother, that pretty much every single man she will ever meet outside of her father wants to stick a dick in her. Straight up, doesn't matter. We talk about that as friends, and you can have acquaintances, you can have all of those things, but you just got to realize that is kind of a woman's burden. She is desirable. She has that agency and she can use it to her advantage. But the problem is, once they have that in their pocket, they kind of stop with the rest of the decision making. Women have a tendency to make self-destructive self-destructive decisions based on their emotion. Oh, this feels good. It's fun. Like all my girlfriends are doing it. It can't be wrong. It can't be wrong that they're all doing this. It can't be wrong that they all have 50 bodies, all of those sort of things. So you're going to have to make decisions. Yeah, you're not going to spend the night there. Yep, I am the bad guy. I might send mom in and have an argument with mom in private, away from earshot, about these very things. And I was very fortunate to have a wife that definitely agreed with that strategy and that I had ultimate authority to make those decisions. Now, she did real good at making a case that made me think, and in several cases, change the approach. And that's a double win when you can do that with a good woman that is your wife and the mother of your children. But you're going to have to make those hard decisions, particularly in the teenage years, because it's not too long after they start their menstruation that they know everything and they actually start rebelling against their mother. And it's like, Mom, you don't know anything. I'm a young woman. I got all this attention. Essentially, I'll rebel against you too. So, your wife definitely needs a lot of support with the daughter when that happens. I didn't particularly understand at the time about alphas and betas, but I understood that every man would do the same thing with her if they could and if it was available to do so. And that I had to prepare her with the ability to make decisions. And I understood that, at least I told her, the kind of man she should look had to have some primary skills. Health was number one. He had to be into health. And he had to be able to make friends anywhere. He had to have social abilities. And after that, he had to have means that if all of her study went wrong, she's well taken care of. So essentially, I addressed both angles. I think I would be a little bit more, I'd use a little bit more references and stories today if I had to do over again, but ultimately it turned out quite well. You know, she married a man that was older than her, exactly in the ranges we talk about, very socially competent and very well off physically. And, you know, he had money, muscles, game, and frame. He fit all that bill. Now, she had boyfriends before that were not that at all. You know, even betas that didn't talk much, you know, well, I said, I love you. That's all I need to do. Guys, if you think that's the case, you kind of have to show that occasionally that, you know, they mean something to you. You don't have to do it often. You do it too much and you're in trouble. But, you know, I'm just saying I might have took that approach a little bit different, but she was able to weed them out herself. So I would definitely put some focus on her own inbuilt sexual desires and needs in order to create a family. But I was also fortunate in the fact that she wanted children. She wanted to have a family. She just didn't know when. And when she went to college, they convinced her that she didn't need it until she was much later in life. You know, fortunately, she confided in her mother about this. I don't know if I want children. I mean, we're well off. I could do anything. I want to stay at home if I'm going to have children. And the wife had a really interesting conversation with her about fulfillment and satisfaction throughout her life. And after that first child was born, you could see all of the gears turn, and she was so happy. And then, of course, then another one came, and she's even happy about that. So it really changed her outlook of that social conditioning that girls have today. That first baby changes everything, you know. It even does so in men in a lesser extent. It changes their outlook, which can be a really good thing. But yeah, I would focus on the duality nature of her a little bit earlier on, and about how relationships actually work and how they're all temporary, and she needs to be prepared for that.
You know what the most important thing you said about that is, though? That you led your family.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. Because you can't convince them of what is right, wrong, and what are the opportunities that they're going to have, which is what I was talking about, without leading them first. And that's the biggest thing. Naturally, you know, I didn't say that because for me, and just like for you, that comes natural. We lead our families.
Yeah. We didn't have access to this knowledge that's been garnered from the 80s through thousands and thousands of surveys, research, and confirmations and correlations that would give us the edge up today. It wouldn't have taken so long. Of course, examples are great, but, you know, we can impart a lot to our daughters today, and even our boys. I think our boys have a little bit of a struggle with this right now, and that's where we need help. That's why we got shows like this where we can bullshit about it.
Yeah, but like I said, the most important thing is, and I think if you find any underlying theme that any of us that we're talking about, it was about, we had those conversations and we led our kids so that they understood their importance and their value to not only us, but what we want them to instill and what their value is going to be in society.
For sure. Gentlemen, you can see today, anywhere you look, and it's so entertaining. Once you have this red lens on, these are prescription, but you don't need these. But once you have this lens of perception on about human intersexual dynamics, and I'm becoming more and more a fan of this evolutionary psychology theory that's being postulated out there now, is that all behavior is done with intent in mind. And as you start to see it, you can see this reveal itself in almost every medium. And it is a fascinating hobby to sit there and watch it unfold at every single level. I watch one of the cutest shows I've seen in such a long time, and I generally don't bring up too much, but I watch a show on Netflix. It's called Love on the Spectrum. These are adult people that are quite autistic, and they have difficulty with social cues. They stare, they get the eyes like this all the time when they're looking. And for us, it'd be quite offensive, and it's very difficult for them to connect with people because of it. They don't have the social cues to know when to stop talking, when to shift around. A lot of times it's coupled with ADHD, but to watch them, the same thing that drives them is the same thing that drives us. It's just that the mechanism for their social understanding and ability to know what's appropriate and not is missing. Fascinating watch and very endearing, actually, because what drives them is exactly the same thing that drives us. I would recommend it because of that, particularly if you can red lens it and understand what's going on there. You'd learn a lot. Now, none of them understand what we're talking about. Even, the boys on the spectrum, they don't know anything. Or the men, I should say, they're all adults. They don't. You can hear them getting blue pill advice. They have no idea. I mean, they can barely hold a conversation. And stick to a topic, but it's really kind of fascinating to watch because the same drivers are in place. So I thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but when you have that lens on, the whole world opens up to you. And I think a very positive way. If you're bitter against it and want to hold on to your conviction, you're going to get that black pill look where things are dark. What do you guys got to say about those sort of things?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Oh, go ahead, Mark. Hit it up, Mark.
I was just going to say, I think people get angry in the black pill or whatever, like you say, because they think that they look at things the way they think they should be instead of the way they are. And thus they never learn how to operate in the world the way it is because they're still focused on what they believe it should be or what they heard it should be or what they grew up thinking it ought to be or what the social narrative was of how it's supposed to be. And it just doesn't work. It just amazes me how many people never look beyond what the news says or the media says, and it's like they're almost programmed with that, and they don't think outside that box, and they walk around angry and complaining and pissed off because the world isn't what they see on the news and social media isn't congruent with what they're experiencing. But they won't change their mind and think maybe what I'm hearing here is not reality. Maybe reality is different, and you start looking at things differently. It amazes me, and it's kind of. But if somebody's watching this, maybe it's opening their mind. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was going to further that statement right there. That I think that anger builds, Thor, that you're talking about, that black pill. I think that sets in because of the ideal, what they conceptualized that it should be 100%. So kind of like what Mark said, what they think. It's, oh well, it can't be. But it is.
Yes. Look what Ark said.
Yeah, it says the black pill mentality comes from a lack of acceptance of reality. Oh, that's a spicy tweet, right? Not even a tweet, comment. Mainly originating in a huge emotional investment in whatever ideology that person has invested in, and that is called your ego.
Yeah, and I'll go a step further. When they do that, what happens is that belief or ideology becomes a conviction. And people die for convictions. This is why doesn't matter what arguments or what studies you can bring when you're having a debate. And that's why we don't do that sort of thing here, because, when a person brings up a point to debate, it's incumbent upon them to offer arguments that are based in some kind of reality. And you never see that with those kind of convictions. It's just you're goddamn wrong. And that's it. Makes for great fucking YouTube. But yeah, they get those convictions are very difficult to come back from. And if you are convicted with that mentality and this reality has broken that in you, you can get so bitter. I mean, hey, guys self-delete because of one-itis, which is a conviction based on the beliefs that there is a soulmate set aside just for you.
Well, if you're thinking from a male perspective, it doesn't make logical sense what women are attracted to. Like, logically, it doesn't make sense to think that a woman is attracted to the 3 dark triad traits of narcissism. But you can't put your logic inside of a woman's head because they don't operate from the same spectrum of reality. And that's what men try to do. They try to think of, well, how could that be? Well, that can't be because I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't like, but that's not the same thing. I like the golden rule, but it's like this. treat others the way you want to be treated, but treat women the way they want to be treated, because they don't want to be treated like I want to be treated.
Yeah, don't save them.
Yeah, don't say. I mean, I've tried, so it doesn't work. So.
Oh man, that's a
I
good.
just wanted to push him out. I just wanted to push Thor's button. Come on, man, get him.
That was good. That's good. But guys, I think there's an answer. You guys want to go down this road a little bit? If
Yeah,
you guys
let's
haven't
do it.
read on it, I want you to search the triune brain, one mind and three brains. This concept is a hypothesis that's now a theory. It goes against a lot of stuff, but there is actual physical sections of the brain that can be isolated and looked at with the fMRI imaging. And it's the idea that you have different parts of the brain, such as the basal ganglia, which is the reptilian brain. That's the brain stem. It's responsible for instinctive responses, sensations in the body, and feelings in the body. You got the mammalian brain, which we all have. Mammals do too. This is the somatotor sensory and emotional experience. This has implicit memory. It is the part of the brain that's responsible for emotion, the language of emotion.
That's the limbic system.
That's the limbic system, and that is the fastest part of the body to make decisions. It starts at the reptilian, extremely fast. Then the limbic system. Those feelings and emotions can save your life. And then something unique has happened in human beings. Now, there are mammals that have neocortexes, but nothing anywhere size the thickness of ours. This is the neofrontal cortex. This is the Homo sapien part of the triune brain. This is intellectual functioning. This is 3D mathematics. It's verbal language, consciousness, and self-awareness. That takes a lot longer. Yes, logic and rationale. It takes a lot longer for that to process. Fascinating. So when we start thinking of we can't understand women, think of it this way. That part of the mammalian brain that's responsible for emotions is their base language. And they express it as such because it was so successful in evolutionary terms to their survival. And that's why they're also leaning towards a communitarian front. You know, very social creatures we are. We're definitely some social creatures, much like wolves, for sure.
Does anybody know the Jack Nicholson quote about women, how he understands women?
Tell us.
I can't think of what it is, but it's quite hilarious.
Yeah, it's probably not as bad as mine. Their problems were problem solvers. Yeah, Phil.
You know, I did a quick search just because of what I was gonna say. You know, it's the neocortex. They operate out of the limbic system side. You know, I had a thought in my head. It's like, well, I wonder if the females, they have a larger limbic system and a smaller neocortex. And so I just threw it up in Google real quick, and it says the findings indicate that the fundamental gender differences exist in the structure of the human cerebral cortex, with more numerous smaller neuron units in men and fewer larger ones in women. So they do actually have a smaller neocortex.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that fascinating?
That is
we got to have to do something on that. But yeah, absolutely. Guys, I got to send one thing real quick here. I'm going to do this real quick. It's not a super chat, but it's so fucking cool. Our good friend Abdel, this is his definition. And it's probably the Jack Nicholson one. I just think of a man, then remove accountability.
Amen to that. That is solid. Yeah.
You got to love that.
It's like trapping a greased pig.
I just think of a man and then remove accountability.
Jesus, that is the most savage.
Man.
Oh,
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
That deserves the war horn.
Yeah.
I just think of a man and remove accountability.
Jesus God, man.
I know it sounds like we're women haters. Not at all.
I love women.
Yeah, that's not at all. I mean,
that actually removing that accountability actually can induce an innocence in her femininity, where we can discount it. It kind of gives that, I don't know, gives that naivete that actually sparks that instinct to protect and secure. You know, there's got to be a good reason for that. It's something for their psychology, maybe to rearing children. Don't really know, or it's the reliance on the fact that
it's based on survival of the child.
Yeah,
they have to be emotional. They have to react faster.
Yep.
Okay. Whereas a man, you know, it has to solve the problem.
Yep.
Okay. And that's why, you know, we're more rational, because we're out there trying to solve problems and we're not operating from emotions. And one of the things is when you take, I want to talk about the ego, like just a minute. The ego operates at two maximums. Okay, the negative maximum is inferiority, and the positive, the other maximum is narcissism. So we have to operate somewhere in between that. And if you look at all three of the dark triads, they're all in that. And it's when you have balance in those, when you understand part of communication is manipulation. So that's the Machiavellian trait. So you understand if you have balance in all those, you can communicate well, you have a healthy self-esteem, you have confidence because of your competency, and you operate pretty much without psychopathy because you don't have frustration and you're not trying to cause pain. So that's the ego balanced. Now, what happens when it's imbalanced and it's towards inferiority? That's where you see that's where you see psychopathy reign. Okay, because of frustration. And I try to explain to people, anger is not an emotion in the sense that it's not something that it's not a call to action. All right. Anger is a manifestation, a physical manifestation of frustration or fear or shame. That's what anger comes from. So if you look at the black pill guys, if they're angry because they're not solving a problem, and that moves them towards the inferior side of the ego. So how do you compensate for that? You feign narcissism. How many of these guys say, well, I have all the answers? And it's narcissistic to say women need to be everything that I need them to be. Because most women don't operate from the standpoint men need to be everything they need to be. They operate from the standpoint, I have a shopping list of the world, and I need most of that shopping list met. But in reality, they enter into relationships knowing that's never going to happen. Now, at some point, you want to reach balance with all that, but they're not getting, black pill guys never reach balance with it. It's that what he said. It's an idealistic view of what they want to be, but it's irrational, and it's fed by narcissism, based on anger and fear and stuff that they get because they can't meet that objective, which is to have a woman in their life, to have a woman that they want in their life. So it creates that whole spectrum of, hate and lack of understanding because they can't rationalize that behavior in other people.
Okay. Thank you, Raith. Always giving us something to think about, and it's such an interesting way. Such a welcome member on the DragonShip here, guys. We got a few more minutes here. I think we want to give our final thoughts on our wrap-ups today. How about that? I'll go last and I'll carry us out. But Phil, thank you for bringing us in today. That was an amazing synopsis to get us into, why all the Chads lay and all the Brads have to pay for this. Thank God for Brads, because that really keeps OnlyFans going. Brads, you just keep paying those OnlyFans and those sweet little gals that are so feminine that show us their particular parts on the internet. It's such a dream, and and it just makes life so sweet to explore all of these ideas, does it not?
It does. It does.
So
Yeah.
let's get started. Who wants to go first?
Mark,
Mark, you're muted. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
We can't hear you, Mark.
There you go. Had a little noise in the background, so I muted it. My idea about it, I know a lot of guys that get mad about the Chads getting the girls, but no sense we talked about anger. There's no sense in getting angry. Just see what it is they do and then copy that into your own personality, not exactly what they do. And a lot of people think that all the Chads are bad boys and they use people, and that's not necessarily true either. I mean, you can get angry, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So take what you need and leave the rest. Take what it is that they do that works and incorporate that into your game. I mean, everybody's got game. It may not be good game because they're getting the girls and you're not, and you want to get girls. So you know, learn from them instead of being angry at them because they're doing something that you're not doing. It's like in all things in life, even people I don't like or people are doing something I don't like or I disagree with, if I listen to them or watch them, I can learn either what to do or what not to do. Everybody's my teacher, and that's my message to everybody is take from the people that learn from those people that are doing what you want to do. And you don't have to take the bad parts in case you know a Chad and he uses women or abuses them, but there's something he's doing that women are attracted to. So take that and just disregard the rest that you don't agree with.
Excellent. Thank you. And where can we find you, buddy?
You can find me on Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration on YouTube, here on Instagram, Mark's Inspiration, and follow me on Rumble at Mark's Inspiration.
Great. And you got any good shows coming up? You can give us a preview too. And what do you got rolling?
Tonight we got Rosamund P. Cherubin. He's the author of True Male Nature 101, which is an excellent book. I recommend you read it. It's written more for boys of single or men of single mothers, but really it's all around good for anybody.
Oh, that's really interesting. We'll have to everybody tune in at Mark's Inspiration on YouTube. Big supporter, definitely Mark's a Drakkar. Anything else?
Yeah, that's tonight, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's it. Great job. Glad to be here.
Oh, man. You bet, guys. I sure appreciate you. Okay, let's get to Raith. Tell us about your final thoughts, what you're up to. I know you got some things coming up, or hopefully we'll see some stuff coming out on your YouTube channel. I know you got plenty of consults up here. Watched one of your presentations with MEN for John MLD. Very good. This man is he's got a lot of experience. Raith, over to you.
Yeah, I would say, from a standpoint of, if you want to be a Chad, take up the mantle of trying to solve the problem. And your problem right now is why women don't find you attractive. And that's where you start. And if you're not doing that and you're sitting there saying, there's one reason, or you have some ideology that, solidifies you being able to sit at home in your basement and, talk bad about women or talk bad about life, you're the problem. Change it. Create a life that, it gives you some sense of fulfillment and changes your beliefs and attitudes about life. And I think you'll probably find that some women, if not all, depending on how far you take it, will start finding you attractive. You can find me at Raith Deantior on Instagram, Facebook, Yahoo Mail, and you can find me. I teach in a men's group every quarter that they do that, and I'm usually here on Saturdays.
Thank you, brother. Love that stash. Phil Foster, excellent job today, man. That's some really good information. I was reading through it. There was a lot there. Almost requires a solo show to get into all of that, because that is the analysis. But I love chopping it up and just throwing an opinion out here, kind of tongue in cheek, and you're brilliant at that. Phil, what do you got going on, man? There's also something really interesting going on your channel, Glenn Laurence channel, and the DragonShip. Can you give us a little preview? What's up with that? If you have any final thoughts on this subject, let's do that too.
Yeah, I'd like to do the final thoughts. Chad Lays and Brad Pays it's a real simple, guys. Utilizing the ovulatory shift information we've given you, and then the timeline Thor has put up there for you. You can kind of use that to calibrate where girls are in this world if that's what you're looking for. Don't lead with your wallet. Brads are going to pay, but you understand, the age range. You're somewhere around 37 is where they're going to start homing in on you. There's going to be girls out there that are going to want to victimize you. Okay. And they're going to want to utilize you for your funds. And so don't lead with your wallet, and that's the thing, right? Is lead with your personality and who you are. Develop yourself and become a well-rounded man, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of those things that go into you becoming a Chad yourself. you know, there's no excuse other than you needing to put the work in. So just get to work and get it done. You can find me at Phil Foster _ on all social platforms. And you can find me at philfosterfitness.com here on the DragonShip. Thor was discussing what we got going on between the Glenn Laurence Presents and Thor and myself. We're doing the Trident show. It's going to be a great thing. And you're going to see the DragonShip possibly live. I think Thor's going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But once again, hey, Thor, thanks for letting me bring this on today, man. I had a good time, and I just want to do things a little bit different. Man, Mark Daniels, it's great to have you speaking up, and same with you, Raith, man. You always are dropping gems, man. I love it, man. I learn something from you almost every time we do these, and same with you, Thor, man. You savage, man. So with that, the chat, man, you guys are awesome, man. Thanks for the support. Hit that smash the like button. We're grateful for you guys participating in the chat, and just keep throwing the questions at us. We'll be happy to answer them. If we missed any, 100%, we will circle back on that. So once again, Thor, thank you so much for today, and you guys have a great weekend.
Fantastic, Phil. Appreciate that. All right, so I'll give my final thoughts on this. It was a lot of fun today. It's very basic red pill fundamentals out there about understanding female sexual nature and dynamics and how it changes throughout their life. And then I want to bring up something. I want everybody here, guys, please support the panel members. All these are very small YouTubes, but these guys have a vast number of years of experience, both good, bad, and the ugly, particularly on my side. A lot of ugly on my side, but because of that, you can have a lot of fun with the information that we put out there. And we're just not really into making shit up. We do our best to present to you, even if it's with opinion, some of the best information that's out there. We try to gather together and have interesting topics for you. And we would like you to support all the channels, particularly the DragonShip and RP Thorn. If you can send a super chat, or if you can even join RP Thor in the membership, it's a much less expensive option, but you'll get a lot out there. And if you can't do that, well,
You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit.
well, so much for that. But I will tell you guys, as I close out today, there's a couple things that you can do to really catapult yourself. And this is where I'm going to sell you. Guys, I'm gonna send you out with a video on my lecture that I've been giving in the last year or two, which is on creating a dominant masculine presence for yourself. Contrary to what it sounds like, these are the fundamentals that your grandfathers had. This is the old school movie heroes that you can learn from, understand how to regulate your emotions, and present yourself and to society as the dominant masculine presence you wanted to be. And every area of your life will start to fall into place, and you will find that your struggles will become less and less if you follow some of these basic principles, which of course you can find for free anywhere on the internet. But I put that together with some personal experiences, and I give you an hour-and-a-half lecture on how you can create your own dominant masculine presence. It involves identity and how you can establish those things. And I had a lot of contributors such as Raith and Bill and the guys from MLD's group help me with that. Please go check it out. I'm going to take you out with that. And until next time, gentlemen, remember the DragonShip. It's what's said to be a rising tide that lifts all boats. So here we go. Skull.
Make sure you get your own copy of Thor's Dominant Masculine Presence Lecture. This is an hour-long lecture that teaches extremely valuable yet simple techniques that will help you to improve your dominant masculine presence. You will learn how easy it is to begin building the foundation for your masculine presence and make yourself into a dominant masculine man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. So what are you waiting for? Buy now and start your journey and start building that dominant masculine presence and become the man that you always wanted to be. If you're looking to level up your physique and you need some help, make sure you go to philfosterfitness.com. philfosterfitness.com is your one-stop shop for all your workout and supplement needs. Get your high-quality protein packed with all the essential ingredients that you need to support muscle recovery and muscle growth. And if you haven't reached your goals on your current workout plan, Go to Phil Foster Fitness today to book you a one-on-one consult. When you book your one-on-one consult at philfosterfitness.com, you get a customized workout plan and meal plan designed specifically for you. Look, you're an individual, so that cookie cutter workout plan that you found off the internet is only going to get you so far. So if you really want to reach your goals, you need to get yourself a customized workout plan that's designed specifically for you. If you're really serious about reaching your fitness goals, why wait? Go to philfosterfitness.com and book your consult today.